I sit here behind a massive oak desk in the dim amber halo of my banker's lamp. I slowly turn a yellow document from 1886. In Illinois, a wealthy socialite named Josephine Cochrane stood in pure rage. She stared at the shattered pieces of rare 17th-century porcelain. Her servants had broken another priceless tea set during hand washing. She swore that if nobody else would invent a dishwasher, she would build it herself. What nobody knew at the time was this domestic obsession would launch a terrifying global chain reaction. It completely reshaped modern architecture, birthed chemical monopolies, and weaponized human guilt. This is a dark chronicle of corporate control, physical suffering, and manufactured reliance. To understand this hidden war, we must journey back into a forgotten domestic nightmare. For thousands of years, cleaning after a meal was a horrifying ordeal. Ancient civilizations used river mud, crushed pumice, and stale urine to strip grease from pottery. By the 19th century, the situation had barely improved. Homes lacked running hot water. Heating a single iron cauldron required hours of burning wood or expensive coal. As a result, domestic water was treated like liquid gold. Families reused the same wooden wash basin for days. Cold, stagnant water sat in dark kitchen corners. It accumulated thick layers of congealed animal fats. The typical 19th century diet was heavy, greasy, and dense. People consumed massive quantities of mutton tallow, pork lard, and congealed beef suet. When hot food cooled on a porcelain plate, the fat solidified into a stubborn, glue-like film. Cold water could not dissolve this dense grease. It merely smeared the lard across the surface. To combat this repulsive buildup, women were forced to use harsh chemical abrasives. They scrubbed plates with raw wood ash, coarse river sand, and caustic lye. Lye is concentrated sodium hydroxide. It was extracted by dripping water through hardwood ashes in wooden barrels. This chemical mix was incredibly dangerous to human skin. When lye dissolved in wash water, it created an extremely alkaline solution. It stripped away grease, but it also dissolved human tissue. Women worked with their hands submerged in this caustic bath for hours every day. The results were visually horrifying. Skin on the hands cracked open in deep, bloody fissures. Fingernails weakened, turned yellow, and frequently detached from the skin.
Chronique chemical burns left permanent scar.
Medical logs from the era documented a common condition known as washerwoman's rot. Skin around the cuticles degenerated into open, weeping ulcers. The physical suffering was only half of the horror. The domestic wash basin was a thriving biological disaster zone. Dishcloths were rarely manufactured items. Women used old, unwashed rags cut from worn clothing. These rags were used repeatedly without proper sterilization. They absorbed decomposing meat juices, sour milk, and rotting vegetable residue. Microscopic organisms multiplied rapidly inside the damp, dark cotton fibers. And no, I'm not making that up. Greasy wash water was regularly reused for entire days. Plates that appeared clean to the naked eye were actually coated in lethal pathogens. A thin, invisible sheen of rancid lard remained bonded to the porcelain surface. This film trapped millions of living bacteria. Every family meal became a game of microbial Russian roulette. Typhoid fever, dysentery, cholera, and bacterial gastroenteritis swept through households. Doctors in the Victorian era struggled to trace the origin of constant family outbreaks. They blamed bad air, foul vapors, and mysterious night miasmas. In reality, the weapon was sitting right on the dining table. The family dinner plate was actively poisoning the family. The sheer physical labor required for this daily task was staggering. A standard household consumed over 40 gallons of water per day for kitchen chores. Every single drop had to be manually pumped from a deep well. It was carried in heavy iron buckets across freezing yards. It was hoisted onto wood-burning stoves to heat. Once the water turned lukewarm and murky, it was dumped out into muddy drainage ditches. A woman spent roughly 3 to 4 hours every day performing this exhausting cycle. Over a lifetime, this translated to tens of thousands of hours of unpaid, bone-crushing labor. Yet, society viewed this suffering as completely natural. Traditional culture framed female sacrifice as a moral necessity. Physical pain was portrayed as proof of domestic devotion. A clean home required a woman to burn her skin and exhaust her body. Any attempt to simplify this grueling process was seen as moral weakness. The world was trapped in a cycle of filth, disease, and silent agony. The stage was set for a radical disruption. The catalyst would not come from a medical doctor or a famous scientist. It would come from a wealthy woman who simply hated broken china. In 1883, Josephine Cochrane found herself at a dramatic crossroads. She was born into a family of prominent American engineers. Her grandfather, John Fitch, had patented a pioneering steamboat design. Her father, John Garris, was a respected hydraulic engineer who built mills. Josephine grew up surrounded by blueprints, water wheels, and industrial machinery. However, as a young woman, she followed the traditional path of her social class. She married William Cochrane, a wealthy politician and merchant in Shelbyville, Illinois. She stepped seamlessly into the luxurious life of an elite 19th-century hostess. Her life was defined by elegant dinner parties and fine tableware. She amassed a vast collection of rare 17th-century porcelain. This china was extraordinarily delicate, translucent, and irreplaceable. However, after every grand dinner, her domestic servants were tasked with washing the heavy stacks of dishes. Servants rushed through the grueling chore in cold, slick water. Plates slipped from soapy fingers and shattered on stone floors. Delicate cup handles snapped off under heavy pressure. Josephine watched her cherished heritage crumble piece by piece. She forbade her servants from touching the collection and began washing it herself. The reality of manual dishwashing instantly appalled her. She stood over the steaming tub, ruining her skin and wasting precious hours. Her frustration grew with every scrubbed plate. She looked for a commercial machine to buy, expecting industrial progress to offer a solution. To her shock, no functional automatic dishwasher existed on the market. Existing patents were crude, impractical wooden tubs with hand-cranked paddles. They simply sloshed dirty water around, smashing fragile dishes against each other. In a moment of righteous indignation, Josephine made her famous declaration. If no one else would invent a working machine, she would do it herself. Her personal tragedy deepened almost immediately. In 1883, her husband died suddenly from chronic alcoholism. He left behind a mountain of unpaid debts, fraudulent investments, and empty bank accounts. Josephine was left virtually penniless at age 45. She faced immediate financial ruin, social disgrace, and potential homelessness. She had no formal income and no traditional employment prospects. Her priceless porcelain was one of the few assets she had left. Driven by pure desperation and engineering instinct, she retired to the woodshed behind her home. She converted the small shed into a high-stakes mechanical workshop. Josephine approached the problem with rigorous mathematical precision. She recognized why previous inventors had failed. They tried to scrub dishes using mechanical brushes or spinning paddles. Brushes wore out quickly and broke delicate porcelain. Mechanical paddles lacked the force to strip congealed fat. Josephine realized that physical friction was the enemy. The solution was high-pressure water streams combined with specialized holding racks. She measured every type of tableware in her home. She drew exact dimensions for plates, saucers, cups, and soup bowls. She hired a local mechanic named George Butters to help construct her prototype. Together, they built a revolutionary mechanical framework. They constructed custom wire compartments fitted inside a heavy copper boiler. Each dish was held securely in an upright position. The dishes remained completely stationary, eliminating any risk of impact or breakage. Beneath the wire cage, a powerful hydraulic pump forced boiling water through rotating spray arms. The pressurized jets sprayed hot, soapy water over every surface. A second pump flushed clean, boiling water over the dishes for a final rinse. The machine was an absolute engineering triumph. The intense heat of the water dissolved stubborn grease instantly without physical scrubbing. The sheer pressure of the jets stripped away biological residue in seconds. Furthermore, the extreme water temperature sanitized the porcelain, killing lethal pathogens. Because the dishes were rinsed in boiling water, they dried naturally from their own retained heat. There was no need for filthy, bacteria-laden drying rags. Josephine received her official United States patent on December 28, 1886. She had successfully created the world's first practical automatic dishwasher. Equipped with a working invention, Josephine sought to commercialize her breakthrough. She founded the Cochrane dishwashing machine company. Her target was the lucrative residential market. She believed housewives across America would rush to buy a device that eliminated hours of physical agony. However, when she presented her machine to private consumers, she ran directly into a wall of patriarchal cynicism. The Victorian society of the late 19th century was deeply hostile to domestic technology. Financial decisions in the household were controlled entirely by men. When Josephine pitched her machine to male heads of households, she was met with cold mockery. Men refused to spend hard-earned money on kitchen machinery. In their eyes, a wife's labor carried zero monetary value. Paying hundreds of dollars for a machine to save a woman's time was seen as financial madness. Why invest capital in a mechanical device when a wife or servant provided labor for free? Men openly declared that hand-washing built female discipline and character. A woman who complained about greasy water was viewed as lazy, spoiled, and ungrateful. The societal resistance went far beyond male corporate greed. Women themselves fiercely rejected the technology. Decades of cultural conditioning had brainwashed homemakers into accepting physical suffering as a badge of honor. Society taught women that a good mother washed dishes by hand with love and care. Automated machinery was framed as a cold, heartless shortcut. Neighbors gossiped about women who sought mechanical help. Using a machine implied that a woman was neglecting her basic maternal duties. Female shame became the strongest defensive barrier protecting ancient, painful domestic routines. Recognizing that the domestic market was closed to her, Josephine pivoted in desperation. She turned her attention to commercial institutions. Hotels, restaurants, boarding houses, and hospitals were collapsing under the weight of manual dishwashing. For commercial managers, dishwashing was not a moral duty. It was a clear financial expense. Broken plates meant lost profits. Hired kitchen staff required daily wages and frequent sick leave. Josephine walked the streets of Chicago alone, pitching her heavy machine to male hotel managers. Her first major sale was to the prestigious Palmer House Hotel in Chicago. The hotel management was skeptical, but agreed to test the machine in their massive kitchens. The results were instantaneous and overwhelming. The machine washed thousands of greasy plates in a fraction of the time. Dish breakage dropped by 90%. Labor costs plummeted immediately. Word spread rapidly through the hospitality industry. Orders began pouring in from major institutions, including the Tremont House and large university dining halls. Josephine had proven the commercial viability of her engineering genius. The absolute peak of her professional career arrived in 1893. The World's Columbian Exposition opened in Chicago. It was a monumental global fair showcasing the highest achievements of human civilization. Josephine entered her invention into the Palace of Machinery. Her machine was displayed alongside massive steam engines, locomotives, and electrical generators designed by male inventors. International judges examined her design for mechanical efficiency, durability, and practical utility. To the shock of the male engineering establishment, Josephine Cochrane was awarded the highest prize for mechanical construction. Despite her triumph at the World's Fair, Josephine's personal life remained a struggle. She fought relentless legal battles against copycats and patent infringers. Male investors tried repeatedly to strip control of her company away from her. She spent decades traveling between noisy factories, filthy hotel kitchens, and cold boardrooms. The constant physical exertion and mental stress destroyed her health. She suffered from severe nervous exhaustion and chronic fatigue. She lived in modest accommodations, reinvesting every dollar back into her struggling manufacturing plant. Josephine Cochrane died on August 3, 1913, at the age of 74. The official cause of death was stroke and mental exhaustion. She died without ever seeing her invention placed in standard home kitchens. Her dream of liberating everyday women from domestic drudgery remained unfulfilled. After her death, her company was acquired by the Hobart Manufacturing Company. Hobart produced commercial equipment and eventually created the famous KitchenAid brand. Corporate executives inherited Josephine's patents for pennies on the dollar. They prepared to execute a massive strategy that would finally force the machine into every home on Earth. By the mid-20th century, the industrial landscape had transformed entirely. The end of World War II triggered an unprecedented economic and suburban explosion. Millions of standardized homes were constructed across America and Europe. Modern infrastructure brought electricity, hot water pipes, and municipal sewage lines into suburban neighborhoods. Corporate conglomerates realized that the domestic market was finally ripe for exploitation. However, corporate executives faced the same ancient hurdle that had broken Josephine Cochrane. Consumers still believed that washing dishes by hand was perfectly adequate. I lean back into the shadowy darkness of my archive and fix my gaze directly upon you. From behind my heavy oak desk, I look at these faded corporate ledgers. The boardrooms of the 1950s realized a profound truth. You cannot sell an expensive domestic appliance by offering convenience. You sell it by weaponizing visceral fear, social anxiety, and deep personal guilt. If this unraveling of hidden history resonates with you, subscribe to the channel right now to join our secret society of critical thinkers. The corporations realized that to capture the kitchen, they had to declare war on the housewife's peace of mind. Major appliance manufacturers launched massive, psychological advertising campaigns. They hired behavioral psychologists and marketing pioneers to manipulate domestic emotions. Print advertisements and television commercials abandoned peaceful images of clean kitchens. Instead, they showcased terrifying, magnified images of microscopic monsters. Ads depicted common kitchen rags swarming with millions of deadly, disease-causing bacteria. Slogans screamed directly at mothers. Is your kitchen rag poisoning your family? Your hand-washed plates are a dangerous biological hazard. Think about that for a second. Advertisers turned a simple chore into a moral failure. They convinced women that manual washing was not an act of love, but an act of criminal negligence. Every plate washed in a sink was framed as a direct threat to a child's health. The dishwasher was no longer marketed as a luxury for rich socialites. It was sold as a medical necessity, a sterile shield protecting the home from deadly epidemics. Corporate strategists successfully flipped the cultural script. Hand washing was transformed from a moral duty into a disgusting, shameful habit. However, convincing consumers to purchase the machine was only the first phase of the corporate trap. The true financial genius of the industry lay in the creation of an artificial, lifelong dependency. When a consumer buys a dishwasher, they believe they are making a single, one-time hardware purchase. In reality, they are signing an expensive, compulsory lifetime subscription. The machine itself is merely a delivery vehicle for specialized, high-margin chemical consumables. Capitalist engineers deliberately designed dishwashers to be completely incompatible with regular soap. If a user pours standard liquid dish soap into an automatic dishwasher, catastrophe strikes immediately. Standard soaps contain foaming agents designed to create rich bubbles under manual friction. Inside a high-pressure dishwasher, these agents expand exponentially within seconds. Thick foam bursts through rubber door seals, flooding kitchen floors with gallons of water. The dense foam traps air inside the hydraulic pumps, burning out the electric motor. The machine effectively destroys itself if fed ordinary soap. To keep the machine operational, consumers are forced to buy dedicated chemical products. Chemical giants like Procter & Gamble and Reckitt Benckiser created custom, highly profitable product ecosystems. They developed non-foaming, highly alkaline detergents containing harsh chemical agents. They introduced specialized rinse aids formulated with synthetic surfactants to break surface tension. They created water-softening salts to prevent mineral scaling on internal heating elements. They packaged these chemicals into convenient, high-cost gel capsules and multi-layer detergent tablets. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything. The machine was completely useless without chemical subscriptions. A household could no longer clean its kitchen using cheap wood ash, sand, or basic soap. They were locked into purchasing expensive chemical pods month after month, decade after decade. If a family stopped buying proprietary detergents, their several $100 appliance turned into a useless, mildew-scented metal box. Capitalist innovation had successfully turned basic hygiene into a mandatory utility tax. As adoption surged, a strange sociological phenomenon occurred. Technological advances were supposed to drastically reduce domestic labor hours. Sociologists predicted that automatic appliances would grant women unprecedented leisure time. However, historical records reveal the exact opposite outcome. The classic sociological study, More Work for Mother, demonstrated that domestic labor hours remained virtually unchanged. Technology did not reduce work. It simply inflated societal standards of cleanliness to absurd, unnatural heights. Before the dishwasher, families reused cups and plates throughout the day. Meals were designed to minimize dish usage. However, once automatic dishwashers entered the kitchen, cultural behavior shifted dramatically. Society dictated that every single snack, glass of water, or minor cooking step required a fresh piece of dishware. Washing dishes was no longer an end-of-day ritual. The machine ran continuously, consuming endless streams of electricity, water, and chemical tabs. Domestic labor was not eliminated. It was merely transformed into loading, unloading, sorting, and chemical management. The macroeconomic and environmental consequences of this shift were colossal. Millions of homes began pumping heated water and harsh chemical detergents into municipal sewer systems simultaneously. Early dishwasher detergents were heavily loaded with synthetic phosphates. Phosphates were added to soften hard water and prevent mineral spotting on glassware. However, when millions of gallons of phosphate-rich wastewater poured into rivers and lakes, it triggered catastrophic ecological destruction. Phosphate pollution caused massive algal blooms in freshwater ecosystems across the globe. Thick green algae suffocated marine life, blocking sunlight and stripping oxygen from the water. Millions of fish perished in dead zones created by household runoff. Environmental agencies were eventually forced to ban phosphate additives in dishwashing detergents. Chemical companies responded not by reducing prices, but by reformulating tablets with complex synthetic polymers and enzymes. These new formulas raised production costs and boosted corporate retail prices even higher. In the modern era of 2026, the corporate trap has reached its ultimate cynical evolution. Today's dishwashers are masterpieces of planned obsolescence and digital lock-in. Mid-20th century machines were built with heavy copper tubs, thick rubber gaskets, and durable cast iron pumps. They were designed to operate reliably for 30 to 40 years. If a mechanical switch broke, a homeowner could easily fix it with basic tools. Modern appliances are engineered with the exact opposite philosophy. Contemporary dishwashers are constructed with thin plastic tubs, delicate impellers, and cheap electronic control boards. Microprocessors are intentionally placed near heat vents and moisture zones. Internal components are sealed in epoxy resin, preventing independent repairs. When a tiny electronic sensor fails after 5 years, replacement parts are priced absurdly high. Service technicians openly advise consumers that repairing a 5-year-old machine is financially irrational. The consumer is forced to throw away 100 pounds of steel and plastic and buy a brand new appliance. Furthermore, modern manufacturers have integrated smart microchips and wireless connectivity into dishwasher design. Recent patents reveal plans for proprietary chemical scanning systems. Future dishwashers will feature microchip sensors that read radiofrequency identification tags on detergent pods. If a consumer attempts to use cheap, off-brand chemical tablets, the machine will refuse to run. The appliance will lock its door and display an error message, citing safety and performance compliance. The illusion of consumer choice will be completely erased. The physical architecture of human living spaces has been fundamentally reshaped around this single device. Modern residential building codes require specific kitchen layouts with built-in 60-centimeter gaps next to the sink. Dedicated electrical circuits, high-pressure water supply lines, and specialized drain loops are permanently installed in floorboards. A modern home without a dishwasher cutout is considered practically unsellable on the real estate market. Human architecture has adapted to serve the machine, cementing its permanent presence in domestic life. We built a world where washing a simple plate requires an entire global industrial complex to support us. We rely on copper mines in South America for electric motor wiring. We rely on chemical refineries in Europe for surfactant production. We rely on microchip fabrication plants in Asia for timer boards. We rely on municipal power grids burning fossil fuels to heat 30 gallons of internal water. All of this massive global infrastructure is activated just to wash a single coffee mug. The ultimate irony lies in our complete surrender of self-reliance. Josephine Cochrane set out to liberate women from physical pain and protect delicate porcelain. She fought male cynicism and dedicated her life to mechanical innovation. Yet, her brilliant breakthrough was co-opted by the very forces she battled. Capitalism transformed a tool of human liberation into a mechanism of perpetual extraction. We no longer burn our hands with raw lye, but we pay an endless monthly tax to chemical conglomerates. We traded red skin for psychological dependency and electronic garbage. I slowly close this leather folio and remove my glasses. We return to Josephine Cochrane and her shattered porcelain. We traded raw chemical burns for endless corporate subscriptions. Human systems change, but our servitude remains identical. Subscribe if this surprised you. Click the video on your screen to dive deeper.